I didn't get to go back and listen to your coverage of it, but thinking how exciting this episode was at the
Hmm.
time. Um, and yeah, like trying to look at it and watch it as if it was the first time was kind of fun.
Mm. Yeah, I remember feeling like, and I think I'm thinking this now too, that oh, this is what we thought the season 3 finale would be like when the governor
Yeah.
attacked the prison, and but this is more like the comic where he's on the tank and everything, and I wondered if they had always planned this. It seems like they must have because the governor survived season 3, and so what would have been the plan for him? But I wonder if there's any element of Scott Gimple is now the showrunner and he's going to go back and have a redo at this and do it right, you know, because people weren't that happy with when the governor first attacked the prison.
Like I could see it going either way, but it's hard for me to believe they would have had that ending of the governor be so anticlimactic if they weren't going to do something big
Some
after
climax, yeah,
that.
some
Because I
point,
think
yeah.
they knew they were disappointing fans without it at
Mm-hmm.
the end of season three. But I think maybe they were okay with it because they knew we are gonna surprise them with
Mm-hmm. I
this.
mean, honestly, I just think they should have just done this episode then. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, then we would have missed this whole sickness thing, or they could have just done that in some other way, though. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they couldn't. That was pretty good, but still, it feels like they drew the story out to me
Yeah.
in a way where maybe they should have just had him attack the first time with
I
the tank.
I don't remember them perfectly, but I did read the Governor books a long time
Yeah.
ago, and I think the payoff of the last two episodes before this one was, I think, much bigger for people that had read those books because of the sort of subtle
Oh
references
yeah.
to things that happened there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of cool. And there's little hidden Easter eggs almost that I think Nathan did a really good job of pointing several of those out in the
Hmm.
podcast. And so I don't know if maybe that is part of why they felt it was going to be worth it, but I think for most people, I think it was like two somewhat disappointing episodes and a payoff, like you said, that probably should have happened last season.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
I liked them, and I also remember liking season 7 when Karen was getting really exasperated with it. So it'll be interesting. But then I remember getting kind of exasperated by the time season 8 rolled around too.
See, I didn't get that way as a lot of people did, so I also think it's so just interesting how, like listening to you guys cover the last two episodes, I think as always made me like them a little bit more.
Mm,
But it's cool to hear just people who feel differently about it and
yeah.
some of their passion sometimes bleeds over and I'm like, "Oh, it's not so bad."
And I mean, it is all subjective, but there are
Yeah.
tendencies. Like, I think those two episodes are considered by the wider Walking Dead fandom to be a disappointment, you know, even
Yeah.
though some people like me think differently. Anyway, let's get into this one. Walking Dead season 4, episode 8, Too Far Gone. Do you want to read the plot summary?
Sure. So the governor captures Michonne and Herschel and challenges Rick and the others to abandon the prison. Though Rick offers coexistence, the governor refuses, decapitates Herschel, and gunfire breaks out. In the midst of battle, Lily rushes up to the governor with the body of Megan, who was bitten by a walker while playing. The governor shoots Megan to prevent her from reanimating and then orders a full out assault of the prison.
Kill them all.
Yeah, God. Tearing through its fences and allowing a horde of walkers in. The survivors in the prison are forced to scatter when they no longer can hold their defenses. At the same time, Rick and the governor engage in a one-on-one brawl in which the latter gains the upper hand, only to be mortally stabbed by Michonne just before he can kill Rick. Rick escapes with Carl, while the near-death governor is approached and executed by Lily.
Mm. Okay, well, what did you think coming back to this one?
I mean,
Still good?
still good, still just, I mean, everything from the music that's overlaid with all of the governor and the way it builds, and then just the biggest freaking battle we've seen yet on The Walking Dead. Like, just a lot of action and excitement, but still quiet, emotional moments that you expect with the show, too. And
Mm-hmm.
I loved it still.
The battle was, yeah, really well staged. In particular, I think Ernest Dickerson directed this one. He was a director on a lot of the action heavy ones, including when the zombies stormed the farm that I was in season two. And I think it's always a good battle when it feels like it has a shape and you go to little different parts of it and interesting things are happening, but it
Yeah.
still feels chaotic. I mean, it was very, very well done. Watching it, I felt bummed out. And I think, of course, that's the way Walking Dead is. It can be bleak. You lose characters. We lost Herschel. But I think, more bummed out this time just because I'm watching two groups of people who have almost all good people, and
Hmm.
they're being forced into killing each other by these leaders. And I definitely blame the governor way, way more than Rick, but I don't know if Rick handled it as well as he could have either. And it's just, but more just the governor, guys
Yeah.
like that going in and convincing people to dehumanize another group and fight against them and kill them. There's a part of me that's like, I don't want to see this right now.
Yeah.
Even though it's good, it's depressing as hell.
Yeah. I mean, there's too many parallels in the world right now to that kind
Yeah.
of thing happening to not
That's why
have
it
it
hit
feel
different
particularly
to me
bleak. Yeah.
this time. Yeah, for sure. Like just the whole Ukraine
Yeah.
thing, and uh, all
Yeah.
that felt. I'm not going to dwell too much on parallels because that'll just be too depressing. So I said what I had to say about that. Done with that part. As far as it being a great episode, it also felt so much more weighty than anything or just about anything we're seeing in the Daryl show right now. Not to slag on the Daryl show too much, but that became just sort of popcorn action movie a lot of times this season
Yeah.
or like John Wick, you just kill a bunch of people and it doesn't matter. Here it felt like every death, even the people we didn't know, it just felt like tragic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So anyway, let's get into our points. You want to go first?
Yeah. Um, I'll just start. My first point was just that the governor is back on his bullshit. Um, he's lying to this whole group to get them to attack. It's very reminiscent of the way he manipulated Woodbury.
Mm-hmm.
He's calling the people at the prison killers, and that's not completely inaccurate, but he's leaving out a lot of details. He's saying they killed his daughter, which, like, okay, final death, sure, but your daughter was already dead.
Yeah, that's a important distinction.
Like he's lying or like grossly twisting the truth.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
it's a lot.
if somebody was like, if he'd said, "Oh, I meant zombie daughter," then they'd be like, wait a minute."
And he's doing very like black and white, like we're the good people, they're bad people, they're killers. And um he does take a moment. He's like, there's a few good people there, and that leads Lily to like directly question him, be like, you said there's good people there. And he's like, but they're there with the bad people. And she's like, am I with bad people? Like, I thought that was,
That was so good.
I don't really like Lily's character in general. Like, she frustrates me a lot. But that was at least a good moment of her, I feel like, asserting herself and actually like stepping back to question things.
I think this whole episode, she is, because we don't really see her before he's giving that speech, but I think as she's listening to it, she's realizing that he's not a good man,
Yeah.
and she's or at least she's very, very skeptical now, to the point where he would have to win her back. And I don't think that changes through the whole episode. In fact,
Mhm.
whenever he goes over and like hugs her, kisses her, she just looks disturbed, and it feels like a violation to me. It's icky.
Yeah, yeah. She's scared. She's scared.
Yeah.
I think even if you were in the zombie apocalypse and she didn't need him for protection, it's also just scary to realize this person that she's been very intimate with, that she's left her daughter with, is actually a psychopath. And like, I think she probably knows it. I think it's not even like bargaining in her mind. She knows it, but she can't quite admit it to herself yet because of all that fear. Um, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I think she knows because she doesn't seem that surprised when she comes across him later in the fighting, having just like hacked at Herschel's neck. Like it's almost like I don't know. Maybe she was in shock, but I think she sees through it at the beginning of the episode when he's giving that speech, but
Mhm.
she's trying to figure out. how do I stay safe and not
Yeah.
have this person? Like, she doesn't really have any other options,
Yeah.
which kind of leads me. And I mean, you've touched about this in the last couple episodes about what a narcissist he is. And I was trying this episode, like, so much of it is focused on that he wants to protect his people, but like, does he really care about Lily and Megan? And I think, like, I think no. Like, I think it has more to do with his narcissistic self-fulfillment to be an effective protector and overcoming his previous failure to protect his family and his whole town than it is that he inherently cares for them as individual humans. Like, I think he cares about Lily because he cared about his daughter that he failed. Um,
I mean, Megan.
and yeah, sorry, Megan.
Hmm.
Um, because I was getting so frustrated with just like how incompetent Lily was. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, he would have taught Lily and Megan like a few basics to just be able to like handle a zombie. Like, she shouldn't be this crazy ineffective if he is so competent. Like, if you loved someone, you would want them to be able to survive in this world. And then I was like, no, 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 no. Like, actually, that's not the governor's approach. Like, he either wants incredibly weak people who have to depend on him because he's so strong, because they can't survive without them. So he either wants super weak people that see him as like an invaluable protector, or if he has someone who's strong, they need to be sheep. They need to basically just be like dumb idiots who are muscle, but they're
Loyal.
not. Yeah, so it's the
Yeah.
Merles,
For
you
people
know.
like the governor, loyalty is the top number one thing.
Yeah,
It's all
yeah.
they care about.
Um, and so like I mean he did the same thing to the other people at Woodbury that were not his goons. He had them live in this sort of like false sense of security within the town. He tried to make things like almost like I don't know, just like 1950s sweet walking down Main Street. He had the like fake zombie fights that he put on for them. Like, he wanted those people to be weak so they would have to depend on him. And that's what he's done with Lily and Megan too, is like continued to keep them weak. I realized they didn't have the same amount of time to like get strong, but I feel like he wanted them to be ineffective and have to depend on him so he could fulfill that like hero role with them.
Maybe, yeah. I do think with especially Megan, he wants it is more about him wanting an adoring daughter, you know.
Hmm.
But I think part of this probably is that whole thing with The Walking Dead where you have to somehow stage a believable threat from stupid zombies. So people seem ineffective all the time. So I don't know how much
Yeah.
I personally would read into Lily putting her daughter in a situation where she would get hurt like that. I think, I mean, the governor wanted to arm all his people at the end there, but yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think mostly he chooses a certain group of people who he knows are on the same wavelength and are skilled fighters, and he makes them as mercenaries, and then everyone else he wants just to be dependent on them. So yeah, I guess I do think you're right about that as I'm talking it out. Yeah. But Andrea wasn't weak. She was pretty skilled, but
Yeah.
as long as she was loyal to him, he would
Yeah.
have been okay with her too, you know?
And he liked her. Like, he wanted to get her in the bed. Like,
Yeah.
I think he could make an exception
Likes
for a
Lily too.
strong woman. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but Lily
Yeah.
was already strong. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I think as far as like, I like Lily's on top of this RV, and she's kind of in a position where she has to be in a good place to look out for zombies. And I did like her reaction to this zombie coming across the river, and then it kind of floats on downstream. I
Yeah.
just thought that was like a little art film or something. It was really cool the way they shot it.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, she just should have had Megan up there right next to her, right? When
Yeah.
it's in a new location like that.
It's
Yeah.
only been a couple days since Megan like got grabbed by a zombie and almost died like through the clothesline,
Yeah.
right? Like, I just think she'd be in a more like uber protective mode. And
Right.
again, that doesn't really, like you said, it doesn't set the stage for exciting zombie attacks and as far as a zombie show, but
Yeah, that's the thing. And they have it where they're in a place where she can clearly see Megan, and I think pretty much see far off in any direction. So if any
Yeah.
zombies came, she would have had time. And so they had no way of knowing there was going to be one right there in the mud. I think
No,
that's
for
why they did it
sure.
that way. But I still felt critical of Lily. I'm like, just have your daughter up right by your side if you're going to be up on
Yeah.
top of something like that.
I think like just I was thinking back, and this show has done this in general with the majority of the mothers in the show. Like I just think that's not how every woman who has a child reacts. Like many of them would be much more like focused on being strong protectors of their children, not just these like damsels in distress. Like we saw it. Um, Carol didn't get strong until after her daughter died.
Mm.
And oh my God, Lori, like I just feel like people were so frustrated with her because of the way she acted. I just don't think like why is it every woman with a small child, now here we see it again with Lily, just like is yeah, it's damsel in distress, like very helpless, very incapable of being able to protect their children on their own. Like it's
Mhm.
too many times that they've done it that it's starting to get annoying. I'm not like that could be some women, like lots of people react differently,
I
but
mean, in this case, it it's kind of like I was saying when we were talking about the governor's story. It was like the perfect thing for him to find to bring him out of this suicidal stupor, because it
yeah,
was just a perfect fit for him to play the same role that he played before. So he
exactly.
kind of,
Yeah.
I would say, if there was a situation where you needed someone like that, maybe this was it, a damsel in distress kind of thing.
No, for sure. And I think it was just more the repetition of it that was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, we've seen it. Stop. The only other thing I had just talking about the governor, because I won't talk more about those things because I think we'll get to them when we actually talk about like the actual war part of things, but he does seem to be attempting to handle this differently than he would in the past. Like he does seem like he at least wants to try to give the people in the prison the option to potentially live by leaving the prison without just like bulldozing through everyone. Now, I don't know if that's because he knows that will protect his people or if that really means that he has turned over a more generous, like slightly more peaceful negotiating approach. But at the end of the day, like even if it is a change in him and he doesn't want to kill people, do we ever think he really would have let Michonne go? Even if Rick had agreed to leave, like I could see him releasing Herschel to them. But even if he'd gotten over what Michonne did to his eye and to his daughter, wouldn't he just assume that she was always going to be trying to kill him? Like I just don't think he ever would have really let her go. I was curious if you think that any of the hostage situation was real as far as him letting them go.
I think it's complicated. I think what he's telling Herschel and Michonne, hey Michonne, I know my daughter was dead now. He's trying
Mhm.
to say, I don't have this vendetta against you anymore. And he's telling them, we could do this without losing any lives and all that. I think he's half saying that because he's trying to get them to do what he wants. So he's trying
Yeah.
to calm them down. So it's manipulative, right? But
Hmm.
also when Herschel says governor, whatever, and he goes, don't call me that. So I think that he is also kind of struggling with what kind of a person he wants to be, and
Hmm.
maybe he can be better. But with the governor, I've realized during this rewatch that just the phrase "you kill or you die" really is at the core of him, and
Hmm.
he's trying, like, there's times when he's like, uh, maybe I can get over that. So that's why when he's killing Martinez, he's like, I don't want this, because he's
Yeah.
trying to get away from it. But then, it always ends up where he feels like I have to kill or I'm going to die. And so that's why when Rick says, we can all do this together, we can be together, he says liar, because he's realized, or at least that's what in his head, he's like, you can't, you have to kill or you die. And then he kills. So I think it's kind of both. I think, but I do think probably on the more cynical strategic side, he's just trying to keep them calm, and he still wants his people, if possible, to see him as a good person and a protector. So he would go into the prison if possible, take it without losing any lives. And then I do think he would still, if he could get more people like Mitch behind him, send them out to kill Michonne if they could find him, no matter what.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think I don't think he really, even if he decides he wants to be a good guy, I don't think he would leave someone like that out there who is clearly a threat to him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, true.
And I think as much as he struggles with it, he just can't get past it. He's too narcissistic. He's too fucked up.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
he's too bad. So my first point is evaluating his argument, convincing his group to take the prison.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, what did you say? He's back in his shit again or something?
Back on his bullshit.
He says if they stay where they are in this unprotected, unfortified camp, that eventually walkers or people will kill them. I think that's probably true. It's, they should, if they want to be safe, they shouldn't be out in the open like that. He says the prison would be a better place. I don't know about that. I mean, it is fortified, but it's really conspicuous, which makes it attractive to others, and therefore it might actually be a target that you'd have to be able to defend. And the fence also isn't that great. So I think it's debatable. But then again, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It's better, it's better than where they are now. He also says any place that's safe, really safe, someone's already there. And I was like, oh, I've been saying how, most people are dead, so there should be a lot of places, but maybe the kind of place that he really wants, that he thinks of as fortified, maybe there aren't as many of that. Maybe those would be the places that would get filled up the fastest.
Did Woodbury, it get fully destroyed? Did he go back and destroy it?
I think that's the idea. Yeah, they showed him burning it.
You could rebuild that, it feels like, but yeah, I guess.
I think the reason why they show that shot of him burning it is because they wanted to have the idea that it's not an option,
Yeah, I guess so, but it just feels like, I don't know. The prison isn't that great. I agree with you. It feels like they should be able to find something else equally as good.
I think so.
And maybe they have to do some fortification, but you're going to have to keep doing that at the prison anyways, because the fences keep falling down. So,
but that wouldn't be as interesting as, this battle.
Of course not.
So he says there's bad people at the prison, calls them the people who destroyed my camp, but he destroyed his camp. As we just said, he burned it down. He says most of them are thieves and murderers. That's not true. He said, they mutilated him, which is true, but Michonne did that kind of in retaliation for him having tried to have her killed. They said he killed his daughter, but she was a zombie. So that's all bullshit. Like, all this stuff about them being bad people is bullshit. And I just went back and looked at his story just as a reminder. So he took in Michonne and Andrea, and then when Michonne wanted to leave, he let her, but sent people to kill her for no good reason. It's just that philosophy again, you kill or you die. And by doing that, he just confirmed her suspicions about him and made an enemy. And then he kidnapped Glenn and Maggie, interrogated them, sexually assaulted Maggie, assaulted Glenn, just because they wouldn't give him information on their group. He also told Merle to execute them. So, I mean, when you're just trying to like weigh out in The Walking Dead, a lot of times, it's not, the answers aren't so easy. It could be this, it could be that. Like with Carol, should they have banished her? You can have arguments on both sides. Maybe with this, I just think the governor is fucked, man. He shot himself in the foot. He made enemies where he didn't have to.
Yeah.
So I was saying maybe Michonne shouldn't have killed his zombie daughter. Maybe that was like kind of the one thing on the other side that they did, but that's because it would be stirring up a hornet's nest for no good reason.
But she didn't know what was going on. Like when she first found his daughter, she thought it was a living girl he had tied up. And then
she saw it was a zombie and killed her. Yeah, maybe she didn't even know what she was doing.
Yeah, she didn't know it was his daughter. And still, I could imagine, I don't know.
But he said, don't hurt her. And then she did it.
Yeah, I guess.
So I think she kind of knew. But I mean, still, that is nothing compared to him sending Merle and his guys out to kill her, to murder her, a living person,
Yeah.
that's nothing. And I think her failure was more, if you agree there was one, which some might not, but it was more of a strategic failure, but his was a moral failure.
Yeah.
So it's way, way different. Anyway, so yeah, I think, he's right basically that they should look for a better place, but he's totally misleading them when he says these are bad people. Which, I mean, that's clearly obvious, but I thought it'd be fun to kind of go through and parse it out a little bit.
Yeah.
So what else? Oh, wait, actually, let me do
yeah.
my other point about where the governor's head at, since you already kind of talked about
Yeah.
that too. He tells his group that he tried to die because he didn't want to accept that you couldn't live in this world without getting blood on your hands. There's so many negatives in that. It's hard to parse out, but I think he's saying he would rather die than have to kill. And so if he believes you kill or you die, then he had decided, I'm going to die. I'm just going to die. For a while there. He was suicidal. I think it was also just because he lost everything, but now he has something again to protect. I do think that he does know his daughter was dead, as he told Michonne.
Yeah.
Because I think that's why he shot Megan after Lily brought her up dead. He's like, I'm not going through that whole zombie daughter thing again,
Yeah.
And then when Herschel said, he's arguing to the governor, we can find a way to live together. And the governor says no. And he goes, I found a way. I'm trying hard. There's all kinds of ways I could do this. So he is trying to say, you know what? We could just go in and guns blazing. So I'm trying. And I do believe there is an element of that. But he says, this way you get to live and I get to be. And then he doesn't say anything. What do you think he was going to say? A father or something? A better person?
So. Yeah. Yeah.
And then when Herschel
hero.
says, yeah, probably, yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's probably right on, yeah. But Herschel says, you say you want to take this prison as peacefully as possible. That means you'd be willing to hurt people to get it. My daughters would be there. If you understand what it's like to have a daughter, then how can you threaten to kill someone else's? And he goes, because they aren't mine, which is a great line. But it just shows there's no empathy there. That's a narcissist answer. I mean, he's honest at least, but yeah, it's just not a good person to say something like that.
Yeah, I had that in my notes too, but one thing I noted after it is like it's super cold, but how far off is that from Rick's stance in many of the seasons going forward? Where if you're under his wing, if you're part of his found family, like he'll do anything, even kill people in cold blood in their sleep to protect even the chance that his people could be at risk.
Yeah.
And I don't think Rick is as far as the governor is. Like, I do think an innocent person, he would try to do what he thought he could to avoid hurting them. And he tries to bring in and protect people. But the second he sees, people as a risk, the people in Alexandria as a risk because they're weak, he immediately starts to put his group ahead of them. I don't think it's as far as the governor, but it was just interesting to sort of think about the progression of Rick along those same lines.
I think the difference is that there's not much difference, which is one reason why I'm critical of Rick. I'm excited to get into that because I still, even when he gets to where I think is darker, I know Renee doesn't agree, but I think is darker. I still think he's a fascinating character. But yeah, man, I mean, just when he was shooting, he shot at somebody who ended up being a member of the kingdom, and he didn't even have any reason. He just shot at somebody because they were a stranger.
And no remorse either.
That's
even when Morgan
just
called
as
him
bad
out,
as
he
the
was just
governor.
like, "What? Like, it's fine."
That's like worse.
So yeah, yeah,
yeah, totally good point. I think. Okay, what's your next one?
I think also maybe just continuing on that, I had a point just sort of recognizing the wise counsel of Herschel and sort of the theme of you get to come back. And so, as you just talked about, he tried to have that sort of appeal to the governor, I think in the very Herschel way of trying to say, like, I see you've changed, like people can change and like we can all live together. And it's the same themes and moral approach I think he's been trying to instill in Rick the whole time.
Mm-hmm. He's the one who told that to Rick in the first episode of this
Yeah.
season. Yeah, Herschel.
And we see then at the end of the episode when Rick and the governor, or I guess the middle of the episode, when then Rick and the governor are sort of trying to negotiate with each other, the words that Herschel has said to Rick, the lessons he's tried to instill in Rick, literally almost verbatim, the things that Herschel was saying himself to the governor in the RV,
Mm-hmm.
Rick is now saying. Um, and I think one that's like really beautiful. And then one of the last things Rick says before the fighting breaks out is declaring, "We get to come back." And to me, like, I tried to focus in on what felt like such a bright moment in what was a pretty dark episode, which is Herschel's freaking gleaming face. He's just so proud of Rick in that moment because
Mm.
not only is he proud that Rick is, trying to make these arguments, but I think when Rick declares we get to come back, like Herschel sees he's not just saying it, like he really believes it in that moment. And I think Rick has become like a son to Herschel. I feel like, does he even say that at some point to Rick? I know he says it to Glenn, but um I think even though the next second the governor starts hacking at Herschel's neck, I think it's just really nice that Herschel got this moment of like, I don't know, almost like blissful happiness and pride at seeing Rick and really seeing what it becomes his legacy get passed on because,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
It's a good thing he's not there. Maybe he's there looking down when Rick's shooting at this kingdom guy later on.
Yeah, I mean, as I was writing this and thinking about like how proud, like we know Rick doesn't necessarily stay in that same mindset fully, but I think he's always striving to get back to it, right? Like even when he
Yeah.
loses his way.
I think by the end, he's
Yeah,
back there more than
yeah,
he had been in a long time.
yeah. So he definitely flip-flops, but I think he's always striving to come back and to be the person bringing people together.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was a really beautiful moment. And then the last sort of wise counsel of Herschel that gets mentioned in the episode is we see the absolute devastation of Maggie and Beth as they literally see their father dying in front of them. But then Maggie does turn to Beth and like trying to encourage her to like stay focused in the madness that's all happening around them. She says, "We've all got jobs to do." And I just thought that was also like a really beautiful callback to one of Herschel's go-to
Yeah.
things that he would say to his daughters when he needed them to just focus in
Mm-hmm.
times of chaos.
It's a
So,
quick, efficient way to get Beth to do what she wanted right then.
mhm, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all I had there. I mean, I guess just acknowledging that I think losing Herschel is a big loss of sort of what has been a bit of the moral compass of the show for at least the last like, season and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even at the farm, he was that he struggled trying to wrap his head around the zombies and things at first. And even when I think Herschel has stumbled and been wrong, he had good intentions, right? Like he was keeping the zombies because he thought that he could save them. And
Yeah.
he, fell back into going to drink because he was so ashamed of the danger he'd put everyone in and what am I doing? But I think was a pretty amazing character.
He
And
saved Carl,
yeah. Hmm.
when he got shot by
Yeah.
Otis. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like you're giving a good eulogy here of
Yeah.
Herschel, so that's good.
He saved Carl from the gunshot, but then he also saved Carl by mentoring Rick because Carl was really going off the psycho
Yeah.
killer kid path. And if Herschel hadn't come and talked to Rick, if Herschel hadn't convinced Rick to be a farmer for a little bit, I think Carl could have really gone down a different path and ended up a very different teenager than what he becomes. And I think Herschel is really who directed that. So again, like another way that I think Herschel's legacy lives on. I mean, obviously it lives on through his namesake in Maggie and Glenn's child, but I think ways that his legacy lives on in the whole Walking Dead family like continue to trickle out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he feels like, and there's characters well, what was I going to say? I don't know. I was going to say maybe he's one that's remembered more than others, like T Dog. I feel like he doesn't get his due sometimes, but man,
Yeah.
there's just so many characters. Even Shane, like, just they still are big. You still think about them when you think about The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Herschel's one of the top ones, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm. All right, I'm going to talk about Rick telling Daryl about Carol.
Yeah.
And Daryl's so pissed at it. And I love Rick says she did it. She said it was for us. That's how it was in her head. She wasn't sorry. And Daryl says, "Man, that's her, but that ain't her." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"What? What are you saying there?" And it sounds like you're a little confused. Like part of him knows she's kind of fucked, but he also knows her as a good friend. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing with Carol. If you're her friend, then she will literally kill for you or die for you, put herself in danger. But if not, or even if you are and you're in her way, your life could be in danger at some point. And later on, she almost gets Daryl's sort of girlfriend Connie killed in that
Yeah.
cave, and and he's mad here at Rick, but I think he understands, because if he didn't, he would be even more mad. And he's like, let's go tell Tyrese. So it's not like, well, I'm going to fight you, or I'm going to go find Carol, or, he's just like mad, but seems to be going along with it, I guess. But
Yeah.
if I was him, I'd be mad that Rick didn't talk with me about it first. That's what I
Yeah.
would be like. Why the fuck didn't you tell me you were going to do that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that was the misstep in all of it, was not involving the council. And I get it
Mm-hmm.
was a hard time to involve the council because everyone was ill and almost dying, right? Like,
You could
I
still have a
don't know.
meeting.
But I think it would have been worthwhile to have that discussion and not just decide.
Hell yeah, especially with her best friend and is supposed to be your right hand guy.
It's just funny because that was basically just prior to this that he did that. And now this episode, when the governor's calling him out to talk, he's like, "Oh no, like we've got a council. I don't make this decision. I'm not the leader." And it's like, okay, bud, like it's one or the
It was
other.
kind of funny. It was weird because he's like, "Rick, come down here and talk," and he's like, "We have a council now," and then he's like, "Is Herschel on the council? Is Michonne?" And then he goes, "I don't make any decisions anymore," and it's like, that feels like your problem. Like, if you're not the one to talk, then you should be talking to your people, not screaming it to your enemy. It was almost funny.
Yeah, it was a little silly.
I don't make decisions. And then he just ends up making all the decisions, because I
Yeah.
was like, okay, who's on the council? It's Herschel and Michonne are held hostage. Glenn's sick, he's not even out there. Carol's just been banished, right? So the only other one left is Daryl. And so I'm like, okay, then you should have Daryl do it. He's the only one left on the council. And then it cuts to Daryl right as I was thinking that. And he says, "All right, we should this isn't going to work. We're outgunned. We need to get on these buses and get out of here." And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, that's what the council says. Get out. And then he says, "But we need to wait until the last possible moment." And I'm like, that makes zero sense. If you already know that you're going to lose and you're going to have to get out, why don't you just say, "Okay, we're leaving"? Don't say, "Let's fight it out first and see who dies and then leave," if you're already set on leaving.
Yeah. No, that is really terrible. I didn't even think about it like that.
I hadn't thought about it until just this last time watching. But I mean, maybe this is jumping the gun a little bit, but I think what they ended up with is they lost the prison and they lost Herschel. And so just because of that, I mean, hindsight's 2020, but it feels to me like they probably should have handled it better. And since the governor's there with a tank and ready to fight, that maybe they should have just left. I mean, that sounds like, is that the cowardly thing? But maybe it would have saved Herschel's life and they still wouldn't have had the prison, but they didn't have it anyway. You know what I
And the
mean?
bus like eventually gets overtaken, like
Yeah, all
most
the
of the people
Woodburyans
who
are gone.
die.
Yeah.
So like they could have maybe avoided that and like not had everyone scattered, maybe avoided sanctuary. Like I don't know. butterfly effect, I guess. But
Because when the governor says, "Hey, we're just gonna, if you don't let us come in here, we're just gonna blast our way in or whatever,"
Mhm.
and Rick said, "We're not moving. We'll fight if we had to." That's where I felt like, oh God, this is like it's like what happens between countries, and then people die. But
Well, it's like the King David thing, right? Like the two women and the baby, and he's like, we'll just cut the baby in half and everybody gets a half, but really everyone loses when you do that,
yeah,
like I
I
mean,
mean, I said I wasn't going to do this, but it does make me think of Russia and Ukraine, right? Russia invaded Ukraine. And if you follow my analogy, then you'd just be telling Ukraine, okay, just let them have it, which I don't agree with that, right? But
right.
that's like I feel like this is a little bit different
It's
because
different because you
it's
wouldn't be
just
leaving
as,
the people behind to be
yeah,
claimed by the governor and lose their
yeah.
free will. He's letting you all like
And
leave.
also it's a small group and a small place, and they should be able to find another place. Although on the other hand, I'm contradicting myself here, but as who was it, somebody, I think Rick said, there's children here, they're sick, they won't make it.
Hmm.
So if that's true, I mean, they all die on the bus, but yeah, they die on the bus. But still, if he in Rick's mind, he's thinking, if we leave here, children are going to die.
And I think, I mean, you could argue, who knows what Rick's plan really was in the 30 seconds he got to have to think about what a plan could be, but I mean, he could have been almost sort of bluffing at that point, trying to appeal to the people the governor was with, give himself some time to like show
Yeah,
he isn't a bad person in hopes that maybe they would accept that and that it wouldn't actually truly come to fighting. Like maybe he was using it as a bargaining chip because saying like I don't know, maybe he would have surrendered if the governor had kept pushing and left, but he was
yeah.
using it sort of as, well, no
He
one
didn't want to
gets to
do
have
it
it as a bargaining
prematurely.
chip. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe. All right. What's the next point?
Um I just wanted to like take a moment to talk about Rick and Carl,
Hmm.
because this episode really reminded me of why the loss of Carl later on feels like the loss of the heart of the show to me in a lot of ways. I mean, not completely. I still loved the show even after Carl was gone, but if there was anything I still begrudge the entire show, it is the loss of Carl.
Yeah, me
And
too.
because it was the heart of the show, and what I mean is it was the heart of Rick. Like it was everything he was doing was always striving to be better and to survive, to
Hmm.
see Carl survive and with
That's why he
Carl in
always says,
mind.
Carl.
Yeah. And I just felt like the marks of that are sort of all over this episode.
Yeah.
Right before he goes out to the governor, he's standing side by side with Carl. He reassures Carl right before he leaves to go down to talk to him. When he has, not even stood up after being shot and almost strangled to death by the governor, his very first question is, "Where's Carl?" He goes to look for Carl. Um, and then we just see sort of the heartbreak of them together as they find like the bloody car seat, and
Yeah.
a lot of questions about the bloody car seat
I
in
remember back
general,
when
but
we first saw this, we thought, oh shit, they actually killed the
yeah.
baby.
Yeah. Um and just sort of both of them once again having to go through the heartbreak, but this time the difference is when Lori died, there was no comforting of Carl from Rick. There was only Rick's pain at the loss and him I mean, he put his hand, I think, on Carl, but it was because he was so deep in the pain. But in this one, I felt like their pain was shared together. And I mean, part of that is
Yeah.
in this year, Carl has actually grown like it looks like 3 years almost, like he's becoming a young man now.
Yeah.
Um,
Rick has his head together a little bit more now
yeah,
too. He was pretty lost back then.
yeah. And I just thought, like, I don't know, all of those together were beautiful moments and just made me so sad to think about, Carl eventually dying and Rick having to go through that, because this episode just showed so much, as so many of the episodes do, of how much Carl was the driving force behind everything Rick was trying to do. Um, I don't know, just sad.
Yeah.
I did also, like, as a side note, after sort of going through that, have down trying to think back to seeing this episode air. And at the end of the episode, you've just seen Rick go through a whole bunch of losses. And I don't remember if I was questioning what his mental state would be when season three came back on the air. But I wonder if I was scared about it at all because
Season 4 or season 3?
this is the mid-season finale, right?
This is 4.
Yeah, season four. Sorry.
4, okay.
Four. Okay. So when season four came back, I just like, I don't remember what I felt at that time, but I think, leaving all of that having just happened and not knowing, like, is Rick gonna devolve again the way he did after Lori died? Because now he's lost Judith, his found family is all scattered, and his home is gone. Um, and like, obviously he does not, at least he doesn't start envisioning baby Judith appearing everywhere. Like, he doesn't devolve fully, but like, obviously it impacts him. But I don't know. I think that also was sort of there were lots of cliffhangers in this episode, but also just wondering, like, what Rick will we get when things come back? Will he be still the you can come back person? Will he believe that? Or did the loss of all this, the loss of the person that taught him that, being decapitated right in front of him, is that, how's that gonna impact his psyche?
Yeah, I was wondering that too, because I think the way it's been up until now is just that he takes responsibility for everyone. And so that it hurts more when people die because he feels responsible for it. And so now he's, Herschel's dead and maybe Judith, he thinks probably, right? And you would think having it be Rick, that he'd be fretting over whether he handled it correctly. And I think it's debatable whether he did. But maybe, I don't remember exactly. I do remember, you're right, that he doesn't seem to have taken it quite as badly. So maybe they just thought that would be too repetitive or something. But it'll be interesting to watch it a little more closely as we go through it.
He's also so physically impacted. And I think Carl does a little bit more of the spiraling out than he does. But
yeah, I remember next episode is Rick's like unconscious most of the time, right? Carl's eating pudding on a roof. As far as, the cliffhanger, we had to wait 2 months back then, but this time we're just going to keep going right through. So we'll talk about that one next week. So that'll be good. You mentioned the only thing you really begrudge about this series is them having killed off Carl. And I think, even though I've had my criticisms, that's really the only thing. If I could change one thing, that would be it.
Yeah, even over Rick, I think. Yeah. Especially since we got the ones who live and got to see his story wrapped. I think, I do appreciate that the topic of Carl and Carl as a centerpiece still to his driving, force in life was honored in that series. But I just would have liked to still have had Carl there when. Yeah.
And then I was also reminded as you were talking about it that when we were watching this, as comic fans, I won't spell it out in detail, but I'll say that this is when Judith dies in the comic. So that's a pretty big comic spoiler, I guess, but hopefully people are okay. It's been like 20 years ago now, but read it. But anyway, so I'm sure we were just like thinking, oh my God, is Judith going to die if the governor attacks, And now they sort of, I think that's Kirkman in there with this bloody car seat, just trying to make us feel bad.
So
think it happened.
I mean, what were we what reasonable explanation is there for the bloody car seat, though, is what I want to know. Like, was Tyrese shot at all? Was he bleeding? Could he have bled over it while he picked up Judith? Did someone shoot a Zed, but it didn't completely die right there, but splattered blood all over it? Like, what reasonable explanation is there for that? Ugh.
Maybe that was a different car seat with a different baby that was eaten. No, I don't know.
That's more depressing.
that makes it feel better, right? No.
No.
I don't know. Okay, I'm going to talk about tracking Tara.
Ooh, yeah.
Because I always think about people who are in a group where the leader is a psycho and wonder, how much they know, how loyal they are, what their circumstances are. Are they feeling trapped there? Um, so I think it was interesting to zero in on a person like that. Um, I think you might have been able to tell a similar story about any of the people at the Savior outpost that Rick and his people killed in their sleep. I always think about that. Like, what if one of those was a Tara? You know, they wouldn't know it because they killed her in her sleep.
Maybe, but I feel like Negan was so upfront with his, like, he didn't carry shame or secrecy around his abuses of people, that I think it's hard for me to believe that any of the saviors were completely naive to who they were living under.
So you think when they finally did defeat Negan at the end there, that they should have just, instead of bringing the saviors that were left over in to live with them, they should have just executed them all?
No, I don't. And I don't, like, I'm not,
Like
I think I
Callan
feel like it's a
McAuliffe, who's that
I
guy?
feel like
The guy
the,
that plays or that Callan McAuliffe plays, remember?
yeah, uh,
Him? A-
n-
I forgot his
Aiden,
name, but
Aiden. Yeah, yeah,
Aiden, is
yeah.
that right?
Is that
Yeah.
right?
He was a great guy.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I think it is a super gray leaning bad decision that Rick made with the satellite outpost, but I don't think it's like as clear cut.
But same idea though, in my opinion. I just always felt
Maybe.
like
Yeah.
he's going in there killing these people and he doesn't know their situation at all. And some of them could be there really not wanting to be there. So
Yeah, no.
Alden. It's
Alden.
close to Aiden. Yeah. All right. So Tara. So when the governor's trying to persuade everyone to take the prison, she's the first one to say, I'm in. And that probably influenced some other people to throw in too. But it makes sense because he's helped her and her family,
Yeah.
probably saved Megan's life. She believes what he's saying, that there's bad people at the prison and they're going to try to take it without hurting anyone. And if they don't, they'll all be in danger. So she's just, based on what she knows, I think it makes sense for her to throw in. And I think we've all been in situations, maybe not as high stakes, where we've thrown in with somebody and then realized, oh, maybe not. Maybe that's not what I thought it was.
Yeah.
But then when they're there at the prison and Rick says, there are children here, some of them are sick, they won't survive, Tara has a reaction to that. She looks like, oh God, that doesn't sound good. And then the governor just says, I have a tank and I'm letting you walk away from here. And then when the governor puts Michonne's sword at Herschel's neck, and Rick says, look, I fought him before and after. We took in his old friends. They become leaders in what we have here. Now put down your weapons, walk through those gates. You're one of us. And Tara's looking up like, that sounds pretty good, right? Or, I mean, she's also like, wait, some of his people join these guys?
Yeah.
That's not, what about that? Like,
Well, and it's pretty like clear, just the fact that Rick is having that pleading conversation with them should have made, I think, more than just Tara start to question, like, are we really doing this? Like with this
yeah.
dude? Like Tara had, as you said, more reason than any of them to trust the governor. And she was the first one to back out. Like the rest of these people were all like, no, we still trust this guy. Like that's actually I feel like more of them legitimately probably would have backed down, at least from the fight,
Maybe. I mean, I
than
imagine
did.
if I was there, I don't even know if I could listen. I might just be too amped up,
Yeah, no, that's true for
Uh,
sure.
then the governor strikes Herschel's neck with the sword, and the firefight breaks out. And the governor made a point to go over and finish the job with Herschel.
Oh,
No expression on his face. He just seemed like a total psychopath there. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
I forgot that he didn't like slice it off
Right
with one
off, yeah,
blow, which is probably more realistic.
yeah.
But man, it was so devastating to watch this again and see Herschel like crawling through the grass and the governor coming up behind him to finish it. Like, oh,
hmm
that was
And then
terrible.
Tara sees all that. And I think, by this point she's done. And she said to Alicia, he chopped a guy's head off with a sword.
Mhm.
And then The other thing I noticed is just when Daryl throws a grenade at a couple attackers and Tara's nearby, she just looks completely shell shocked. And I thought Ilana
Yeah.
Masterson did a really good job in all these scenes.
Yeah, so good.
So then next episode, she's with Glenn. So
Yeah.
that'll be good to watch.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? Anything else?
What else do I have? I think the only other thing I had was just like some appreciation for the big fight moments. So I just
Mm.
had like noted down a few of the things that I thought were particularly exciting. One you already mentioned, which is just the image of the governor standing on the tank, sort of towering over people.
Mm-hmm.
As like
Right out of the comic.
a little cheesy, a little LOL, but also like pretty badass and yeah, like right off the comic page. Um and then Rick and the governor having the hand-to-hand combat, I think, was just pretty awesome. And really the whole way that played out, where all the people that felt most deeply wronged by the governor got sort of their chance to go at him. So Rick got to have this fight with him, and albeit like
Mm-hmm.
he was losing by the end, but he got
He
some good
lost
like
that fight.
blows in
He
there.
lost though, man. The governor whooped his ass.
And then Michonne coming just at the right moment with it's always exciting. They've done it a few times and like, you know, maybe it can lean a little cheesy, but I love it. Like it always makes me excited when something's about to happen and you see Michonne's sword come from the back through
Yeah.
someone like at just the right moment to change the tides. And then standing over him and deciding not to finish him off, but to walk away while he's suffering, I think was just a pretty badass moment with
Yeah.
Michonne.
But I agree. I think the reason the writers did that is so that the other person he's wronged could also have a shot at him.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Literally.
then of course, Lily gets to do that. Um, then not only do we have what is the most epic large battle gunfight, I think, so far in the show, but then of course the zombies all come pouring in at the same time just to make everything like that much more horrific.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we see
Can you imagine as the director if you were like, what if we just didn't have any zombies in this scene? What?
be ridiculous. And then I think Daryl had some pretty badass moments with grenades. Like he uses a zombie
Yes.
as a human shield. There's walkers everywhere. People are shooting like bits of the walker he has held in front of him off, and he just throws a grenade over at the people shooting at him and blows them to bits. And then he again goes in with the grenade into the tank, which I think was pretty
That
cool.
was
I don't
cool.
know if that's really like possible to do that, but I don't care
Down the
because it was so
barrel.
cool.
I don't see why not. I
I
don't know.
hope so.
But I thought all that was cool. And like current day Daryl would have just been able to take out all these people just by himself.
I know, right? Right. And then what was the guy's name driving the tank? So like the main
Mitch.
goon Mitch. I thought that was also pretty badass when Daryl just shoots him pretty
Yeah.
short range with a bolt.
There was like a pause, like, what's he going to do here? And he shot him. He's like, yeah, that was probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Carl with the shotgun when Rick's looking for him and the zombies are coming towards Rick and Carl shoots him in the back with the shotgun and then he suddenly appears. I thought was also pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. You remember Carl was like telling Daryl, maybe I should take a shot at the governor right now.
I think he
And
should
Daryl's
have.
like,
Someone should have.
well, yeah. But Daryl's like, from 50 feet. And Carl's like, I'm a good shot. And then when the firefight broke out, you'd think if